I'm going to tell you a story about a man named Seamus Rua. Lived in County Wexford a long, long time ago. Seamus Rua. He was a straight-laced, stodgy, stuffy old bachelor. He'd never told a story or sang a song or made up a joke in his whole life. As Seamus, he lived in a big old 2-story house. He had a housekeeper, Madge. Madge would come in every day and she would do his cooking and cleaning and then leave at night. There was one night when Seamus was sound asleep upstairs in his house when he was awakened by the sound of laughter coming from the kitchen below. Seamus, thinking there was an intruder in the house, he got up and went over to the fireplace and got an iron poker with which to defend himself. He then crept downstairs and went to the kitchen and peered in. There he saw his housekeeper, Madge, and 2 other old women he'd never seen before. They were having a party. They were drinking his punch. They were eating his food. They were singing songs, telling jokes that would have made a sailor blush. Well, Seamus's first impulse was to rush in with that iron poker and chase the old women out of the house. But his curiosity got the better of him. Wonder what these old women are doing here at this hour of the morning like this. So he waited. Well, it didn't take long for the jug of punch to be emptied, and then Madge, who seemed to be the leader of the group, cried out, "'Tis time, 'tis time." Well, one of the other old women went to the fireplace, grabbed a red cap off of the fireplace, and put it on her head, and then she grabbed a stick and mounted the stick like she was mounting a horse, and she cried out, "By yarrow and rue and my red cap too, I wish I was in England," and whoosh up the chimney she flew. The second old woman went over to the fireplace, grabbed another cap, put it on her head, grabbed a stick, and she too cried out, "By yarrow and rue and my red cap too, I wish I was in England," and whoosh up the chimney went the other old woman. Before the housekeeper, Madge, could get to the fireplace, Seamus rushed in and grabbed her by the arm. "You deceitful old crocodile, you! It'll be the worse for you if you're here when I return." Seamus went over to the fireplace, grabbed the last cap that was sitting there, put it on his head, grabbed a stick, and he cried out, "By yarrow and rue and my red cap too, I wish I was in England," and whoosh up at the chimney went our Seamus. Flying out into the night sky, he flew faster and faster. He found himself flying over the village, flying over the Wicklow Mountains, out over the Irish Sea, and then he found himself flying faster over the mountains of Wales on into England. Seamus thought he was going to be battered to pieces when he found himself hurtling towards a huge wooden door attached to a castle. But just before he reached the door, he shrunk down into the size of a cockroach, and through the keyhole he went. Little tiny Seamus, he flew through the castle, down some castle steps, up to another door, and then through that keyhole he went. Once past the second door, Seamus returned to his normal size, and there he saw the 2 other old women sitting there that had been in his house before, and they were sitting there drinking wine and having a party again. There must have been something in that red cap that Seamus had on his head that imparted mischievousness. For with that red cap on his head, it was Katie bar the door. Seamus, he wandered over to one of the wine casks, got a big tumbler, filled himself a tumbler of wine, went and sat with the old women. Like I said before, Seamus, he had never told a joke or sang a song in his life. But with that red cap on his head, well, the partying and the drinking and the stories and the laughter went on and on into the night, until at last Seamus Rua passed out. The next thing Seamus knew, he was being rudely awakened by 2 of the castle servants that had come down to fetch wine for the lord of the castle. They picked Seamus up, drug him up the stairs into the dining hall where the lord of the castle was sitting, eating his breakfast. "My lord, we found the scoundrel that's been pilfering your wine these last few months." The lord stood up, looked down at poor Seamus on his hands and knees, his poor aching head held in his hands. "Well, that wine was very expensive. It will be the worse for you. As soon as the gallows are built in the town square, you'll be hung." "Hung? How could this be, thought Seamus. Seamus tried to explain to them about the old women, the old women, the red caps, how he had flown over the Irish Sea on a stick. He said, you know what? No one would believe him. Didn't take long for the gallows to be built, and then poor Seamus was hauled out of the castle, put in a cart, hauled through the town. People started to gather around, laughing and jeering at poor Seamus. And Seamus thought, my life, I cannot be ending this way. At that moment, an old woman cried out from the crowd, Seamus! Seamus Rua! Now, Seamus, you can't be leaving a foreign land without that red cap on your head now, can you? You know that red cap you love so well. The red cap, thought Seamus. Yes, the red cap. I need that red cap. As soon as they reached the gallows, he was marched up the steps. Before they could put the noose around his neck, he turned to the crowd and he said, I am a dying man, and I have a dying man's last wish. I wish to have a red cap on my head, that cap I love so well. Oh, I cannot be leaving this earth without that red cap on my head. They took pity on Seamus. A servant was sent to go fetch the cap from the castle, and it was brought to him, and he put the cap on his head. And he turned to the crowd and made a very elegant speech. I'd like it to be known to all who have ears that can hear that I am truly sorry for my misbehavior, and I'm hoping others will not be having any learning from my misfortune. I am a proper Irishman who was raised properly in an Irish proper home by proper Irish parents, and by Yarrow and Rue and my red cap too. I wish I was in Ireland, and whoosh! Seamus flew up into the sky like a rocket before the astonished eyes of the crowd. Seamus found himself flying back over the mountains of Wales, back over the Irish Sea, back over the Wicklow Mountains. He went into his own town and down the chimney. Seamus stood there in his kitchen for a moment, realized there was no one else in the house. He was all alone, so he made himself back up the stairs. He was exhausted. He went to his bedroom, flopped himself down on the bed, took the cap off and laid it on the nightstand. Several hours later, Seamus awoke and rolled over. The red cap had disappeared. Several days later, Seamus searched for Madge, his old housekeeper, and the other women, but they too seemed to have disappeared from the village, never to return again. From that day forward, Seamus would tell to anyone who would listen about his adventures that night, about the old women, the red caps, about how he had flown over the Irish Sea on a stick. But you know what? No one would believe him. And that is by Yarrow and Rue.